The governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses changes their teachings like people change their clothing. It appears, or it would appear, that David Splane is the one who is tasked, or coincidence would have it that he is the one that is called upon most of the times, if not all the times, to clarify their false beliefs. It was the said David Splane who, in explaining how doctrinal changes are made in the organization, that said this.
Now, the same principles apply to clarifications in our beliefs. The governing body loves to get together and discuss the Bible. And when those Bibles come out on the table, and when the brothers bring their research in, and they're starting to search the Scriptures and analyze the Scriptures, you see the happy smiles on their faces. The brothers love discussing spiritual things.
After teaching Jehovah's Witnesses that the locusts of Joel 2 represents Jehovah's Witnesses, which could not possibly be true, it is just false. But they've come around to admitting that it wasn't Jehovah's Witnesses. And so the said David Splane explained it to Jehovah's Witnesses this way.
Well, for many years, our understanding was that these were good people. In fact, these were Jehovah's people. These were Jehovah's Witnesses. So it's obvious that we have some thinking to do. We have to look for a different explanation.
But he not only explained that they have to find a different explanation, he also explained why they made a mistake.
And if we were to confine ourselves to a reading of just these 3 verses, we could make a case for that explanation.
But the governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses continue to make ridiculous explanations of prophecy. But in the case that I'm going to be discussing with you, it is worse than just confining themselves to a few verses. In this case, it is about not even reading the verse completely, only taking a part of the verse to end up giving Jehovah's Witnesses a wrong interpretation of what the prophecy means. Here, David Splane.
And it's quite interesting. Daniel chapter 9 and verse 26. So now, what's our objective here? It's to see that Jerusalem and its temple would be destroyed a second time, and that true worship would not last. Why, when the Jews came back to the promised land and they were intent on restoring true worship, why would this fail, and why would Jerusalem and the temple be destroyed a second time? Part of it is due to what we find in the first part of verse 26. Messiah will be cut off. So, Jehovah foresaw that when the Messiah came, the Jews would reject him. He would be cut off.
David Splane, the Watchtower organization, the governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses, is explaining to Jehovah's Witnesses that the word cut off used at Daniel 9:26 means rejected by the Jews. How about the very next phrase in the verse?
And after 62 weeks shall Messiah be cut off, but not for himself.
But not for himself. How do you explain the Jews rejecting Jesus, but not for himself? Please explain that for me, Jehovah's Witnesses. The Jews rejected Jesus, but they rejected Jesus not for himself. What does that mean? Ladies and gentlemen, when I got home to edit the video, I was to discover that this situation, this very sad, this pathetic situation, is actually worse than I thought. I am very familiar with Daniel 9:26, and I'm a King James person. And I know that the King James Version says, but not for himself. But the Watchtower's Bible uses a slightly different phrase, with nothing for himself. Using their own Bible, didn't it dawn on the governing body that you could not say the Jews rejected Jesus with nothing for himself? So you would know that cut off doesn't mean rejected by the Jews. I'm trying to figure out how they come up with this sort of reasoning. Are they thinking that because the Jews rejected Jesus, they put him to death? It gets worse. If the governing body looked on the footnotes in their own Bible, guess what they have for cut off or put to death? Another thing that the governing body could have done is checked another translation. The New International Version also says the Messiah will be put to death. And the phrase, with nothing for himself, the NIV has in its footnotes, or death will have no one, or death, but not for himself. But not for himself. Which renders the King James Version accurate. Jesus was put to death, but not for himself. He was put to death for the salvation of the world. Not only that, the very first part of the prophecy, of the verse, speaks to a time prophecy. Has the Watchtower explained when, according to the time prophecy, the Jews rejected Jesus? Messiah being cut off means the Messiah was crucified. He was crucified, but not for himself. His crucifixion had no benefit to himself. His crucifixion, his cutting off, was for you and for me. And it can actually be demonstrated. According to the time prophecy, when it was prophesied that Jesus would be cut off, that Jesus would be crucified, and the prophecy is right on time. But that is for another discussion. It is how these men are just playing guessing games with the Bible. Messiah cut off, what does it mean? Let us come together. When the brothers get together and they pull the scriptures out and they're examining the scriptures, the brothers love to discuss the scriptures. The brothers love to come up with logical explanations for prophecies that prove to be false over and over and over again. Logical explanation. Then, based on the promises set forth in the divine word, the scriptures, we must reach the positive and indisputable conclusion that millions now living will never die. Logical conclusions. Because of logical conclusions, when they come together and they study their Bible, they concluded that Abraham would be resurrected in 1925. Wrong. Just as they were wrong about millions now living will never die. Well, that's the reason they said millions will never die, because the world would end in 1925. Come 1975, logical explanations. 1975 is going to mark 6,000 years since Adam was created. Therefore, it's the logical thing for the Sabbath-like 1,000-year millennium to come in, and so stay alive until 1975. The constant guessing of what the scriptures mean. And try to reconcile that with how Gerrit Lush lied about why Jehovah's Witnesses should trust their explanation of the Bible.
What makes it possible for the faithful and discreet slave to provide precious spiritual food? I will give you insight and instruct you in the way you should go, says Jehovah. Psalm 32, verse 8. Today, Jehovah provides direction to the slave through Jesus. Jesus, in turn, provides direction for his people through the faithful and discreet slave. We can have, therefore, full confidence in the scriptural insight, understanding, and guidance.
Jesus is foretelling the birth of Christendom 300 years before the event. So Jesus foresees that many are going to turn away from the truth. And by the end of the first century, that apostasy was already at work, wasn't it? There were sects, the sect of Nicolaus, for example, and other sects. And now they're on the cusp of the great darkness, the great apostasy that's going to set in from the 2nd century on. And with this in mind, what does Jehovah do? He makes an amazing statement. Revelation 14. 144,000 will be on Mount Zion with the Lamb. There were nowhere near 144,000 in the truth in the first century. And here Jehovah is saying there are going to be 144,000 in heaven with the Lamb at the end. But not only that, he goes further. There's going to be a great crowd that no man can number. How could that ever come true? Ours is the God of true prophecy. Well, that's prophecy. What about the second point, and that is that no one can prevent prophecy from being fulfilled. The devil would love to prevent that from taking place. Think about Revelation 14. If the devil could make the number one short of 144,000, he'd be happy, because he would show that Jehovah was inaccurate in what he foretold. And so that's one of the reasons why the devil has made war on the remnant of the seed of the woman, if at all possible, to prevent that number of 144,000 from coming to pass. But of course, he's going to fail.
What utter nonsense. How on earth do these men believe that Satan is an idiot? How on earth could Satan cut the number 144,000 by 1? God said he's going to choose 144,000 persons from the 12 tribes of Israel, 12 from each tribe. What on earth could Satan possibly do to take away from the number? How long will Jehovah's Witnesses continue to listen to this? let me explain to you what is ridiculous about Jehovah's Witnesses believing this. The boy who cried wolf. The boy who cried wolf, Jehovah's Witnesses. They come to you, they tell you 1914, the end of the world, wrong. 1915, wrong. 1918, wrong. 1925, wrong. 1975, wrong. Gog of Magog, Satan, wrong. The locusts of Joel 2, Jehovah's Witnesses, wrong. Babylonian captivity in 1918, wrong. Jesus appointed the slave over all his master's belongings in 1919, wrong. How many more times must they be wrong for you to recognize that they don't understand the Bible? What logical reason can there be? And then they come and tell you that Jehovah and Jesus trust them completely. Because like they think that Satan is an idiot, they now think that God is an idiot. Because God is going to have a slave who is constantly getting it wrong and trust that slave completely. And so, with all of that, you also believe this?
And what about the prophecy in the Bible that America and Britain would become a dual world power? But now, America and Britain were supposed to become a dual world power. And Britain wasn't the least bit interested in sharing its power with America. It tried to prevent America from separating as a colony. There was a long war, and there were mistakes made on both sides. But finally, America gained its independence from Britain. And what do we find? Some years after that, Britain is sharing its power with America. They are a dual world power.
So what? You never heard of the United States of America and England? When did America and England become a dual world power? Do we have a triple world power in the United States, England, and China? Because China is now becoming a mighty world power. And why England? Why not Europe? Where is the dual world power? How is England sharing its power with the United States? What does that mean? Jamaica is a Commonwealth country. Jamaica is, in a way, under British rule. Jamaica is not a colony of the United States. Or are we? Because we couldn't be just a colony of Britain. It must be the dual world power. When will Jehovah's Witnesses stop listening to these clowns? The England is sharing its power with. If it wasn't so serious, it would be funny. If it wasn't so serious, it would be funny. Because when David Splane says these ridiculous things, you get 8.5 million Jehovah's Witnesses going door to door, teaching people the same nonsense. How many Jehovah's Witnesses going door to door, have apologized to people for telling them that Gog of Magog was Satan? How many Jehovah's Witnesses have apologized to people for telling them that the locusts of Joel 2 were Jehovah's Witnesses? Oh, we are sorry, we made a mistake. Oh, we made a mistake about the appointment of the faithful and discreet slave. Oh, we made a mistake about 1925. We made a mistake about 1975. And yet you believe that you are the Spirit-directed organization. Well, you are partially correct, Jehovah's Witnesses, but the question is, which spirit? Thanks for watching this video, ladies and gentlemen. Have yourselves a wonderful day. I'm always forgetting to do something that is really important. It's like something that every YouTuber should do. Invite persons to subscribe to the channel, to like the videos, to comment on the videos, to share the videos, and now to ask you to consider being a patron. It would be greatly appreciated. I tend to just get so caught up with getting the message out that I keep forgetting to add this. And it's always when I go home and I'm editing that I remember. And so I give you this little thing as my reminder. Thanks again for watching. Have yourselves a wonderful day.
May the grace of the Lord Jesus Christ and the love of God and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with you all.